Good evening. Welcome to this edition of DeFacto Review, one of the story-shaping programs in Mongolia. Here with us our commentator, economist, and columnist Jargal of DeFacto.
Good evening.
And myself, Osnason. We're live on Facebook, VTV, Twitter, #Jargal_DeFacto. We want to hear your thoughts. Please send us your comments. Coming up the program. In regards of Mongolian People's Party meeting. Social Insurance Fund. Smog and mortgage loan. Let's start our first topic. December 29th, the ruling party, MPP, held the meeting, so-called Bakhoral. The meeting started around 11 a.m. and finished 1 a.m. the next day. The meeting was closed to the media, and no journalist had access to the venue. What did you expect from this meeting in regards of its decision?
Well, it was clear from the beginning that it should not. You don't expect a very clear result because parliament members from the People's Party divided into 32 fractions, and it was hard. On the other hand, it was a question of resigning the Speaker Inkbold from his positions, which was supported by 40 members, including their own party in Democratic Party. 40 parliament members asked him to resign from his speaker positions, which he finds impossible. He said at this small Khural that he is nominated by law and he will go also by law. And it caused a big steering, big discussions, debates, in a way, very sharp debates, but no result at the end. But what was good for the public is there are so many critical remarks by prominent parliament members, and in particular Mr. Nyamdorch and Mr. Oyung Irten, who have been very critical with very clear facts about him and the fractions that controls the People's Party. So based on those two speeches, I found out the following. There is a mafia called the Manang, consisting of two political party names, and this mafia is head is four companies, and Mr. Ertin Bildeg of Trade and Development Bank, he is the owner of the bank. Mr. Tumur who was the former Minister of Road and Transportation, who has a company called Undur Buoyant Construction Company, and that company made this white palace of the ruling party. Second, the third is Mr. Kambat, who was also Minister of Road Transportation, and these both from Democratic Party represents a National Progress fraction of the party. And Mr. Kambat, when he was a minister, gave or paid $90 million for 35-kilometer railroad to the Trade and Development Bank, and that money, that proceeds went to the Erdenet for buying Erdenet 49%. And the fourth is Mr. Batam Junai, former city mayor, and he's representing the fraction of the city of ruling party, and he also had nominated, according to Mr. Nyamdorch, he had nominated the head of the police department of the city, and he always plays in casino, and he kind of a kingmaker. And also Mr. Nyamdorch said that these four make one company, and these companies controlling everything. Industrial projects in Darkhang, Erdenet, Silinge, for example, they have bought Darkhang, a metallurgy combinat, we call it plant, and also Hutul cement factory and Erdenet, and they all together own 54 licenses for color metals. That's what they revealed during their discussions there, and these four people has a company that sold for 27 billion tugriks for 3,000 square meter office space in the TDB building. And he said that $5 million are nothing for this group. And that's everything what I'm saying is based on what the two well-known parliament members said. And another very interesting factor that shows that these two parties are already in a very, very hard to say it's separate party. According to Mr. Oyung-il-den, Mr. Inkbold, current speaker, brought Mr. Battolga as his candidate for the presidential election 2017, as he found that it's easier for him to win Mr. Battolga than Amar Jargal, who was another candidate of the Democratic Party. And according to Mr. Oyung-il, that this Batom Juna, former mayor, brought from Singapore, made negotiations with Mr. Battolga, who, by irony, he won the election. He won the Inkbold because they were constantly showing the two videos. One is 60 billion Tugriks collection video. The other was the ceremony that he held during the Tsagansat, the Lunar New Year last year, which really shows kind of a show, a really comedian show. So these two recordings were the key for losing him the election, what according to Mr. also Nyamdorj and Oyung-il-den. Another thing, Mr. Nyamdorj said that the key figure of the internet 49% purchase from Russian is Mr. Ilbek-Dorj, the former president, and every issue that comes about the internet, about the sales of the other assets, it always is stopped at the justice institutions. And all this is made by Mr. Inkbold, who is against all disclosing all these criminal actions. And all parliament members, whoever decided to speak about the internet 49% or the assassination, are becoming always a cause of interest for all this judicial system. So it really shows that based on these facts, we know that this is not something unreal. It is real. There are certain people. There are certain people who has a lot of money, and they are controlling not only the state but also through this their control speaker. That's what the general information was revealed during this small choral of People's Party in Ulaanbaatar, which is good news for Mongolian democracy.
Okay. And the MPP Baccarat made its decision, which some people regarded as unlawful. MPP itself is an NGO, yet the parliament is a state institution. Thus, the MPP cannot make a decision on the state institution. NGO runs under its statute. The state institution runs under the laws and regulations. Will you please share your thoughts on that?
According to charter of the small choral of People's Party, small choral has 300 members, and there's also a Congress, larger one. But the small choral has a right to make amendments in charter of the party if it is supported by more than two-thirds of the members of small choral. And they support 90% the following amendments, which says if political party member, particularly the parliament member, they go against the decisions of the ruling body of the small choral or the political party, they will be dismissed from the political party. And that's the new amendments they succeeded to do during that late night conference. And according to our law, that amendments in a political party charter should be registered, accepted by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court in Mongolia is always misusing their power. They sometimes don't register political parties, due to many reasons they will find out, this time also again, whether they will accept that amendments or not, it's also another on show. So since the speaker is there, who also controls, according to all these conversations, controls all this judicial power in the country, police, etc., probably they may not accept it. If they accept it, then since the charter is valid, amendments is valid from tomorrow, let's say, then only after that, if these members, including Mr. Inkbald, is against the decisions, then he will be dismissed from the political party, which I don't believe it actually will happen.
Okay. And the parliament members was elected by all citizens. The parliament appointed the cabinet. All of them, the 76 member of parliaments, are obliged to convene the parliament and the standing committee meetings. Unfortunately, the parliament sessions were postponed 5 times recently due to the proposal of the Speaker of the Parliament to be resigned. Is there any legal clause or action those who are breaching the laws?
Well, unfortunately, not there is clear legal provisions. They are elected by the people, and they should convene the parliament sessions. They open and close at the end, but during this parliament session, they should go convene on time, standing committees on time, the plenary sessions on time. But unfortunately, 5 times postponed. But there is no particular clause that if they don't, because it's organized way. If one member is not coming, there were several cases. They were raising a case against some members who was not attending their parliament sessions. But now, since they are organized, they're doing it, 40 of them are doing that. They said that until you resign, we will not be at the parliament sessions. So how long it will go on, we don't know. But we know one thing, that because they are not convening, many laws are missing for being adopted. And there are several decisions also to be made by the parliament. So on the other hand, it's quite much, according to Dimbirel, the oldest, I think the most oldest parliament member in the parliament, he said, a surprise, he said that, well, there is a law, but there's also moral law. You are breaching that law, he said, about Mr. Inkbald, which was a kind of surprise from his usually, neutral positions.
Okay, one last question. In Mongolia, which one is the more powerful, parliament or political parties?
Legally, it should be the state should be above the political parties. And political parties are bridge between government and people. And nowadays, these political parties are working, not doing that bridge. They are doing bridge with their own crony, own companies. So that's why now not anymore the state, but by the name of the party, few people are on the top of the state. And according to all these 40 members, that part is represented by the speaker, which stops a lot of things against justice. There are many cases which is supposedly to be to go to court. He's stopping that. That's what, according to we got, according to all these discussions held at the Small Horal. So we don't know actually what's going to happen, but we are kind of in a political crisis.
Okay, let's moving on to the next topic. In this part of our today's program, we'll talk about the social insurance issue. The portion of social insurance in salary will be increased by 1%. This change will be effective starting from the January 2019. The General Authority for Social Insurance informed the public the pension loan rate was reduced and funded by the interest of the residual amount of the social insurance fund money, which is allocated to the commercial banks. Social insurance fund money was loaned to the commercial banks at the lower rate, yet the commercial banks lend that money at 12% rate. Why does that government let the private banks to do so? Why is the government especially treating the commercial banks?
Yes, as we speak of, there are 400 people receiving pension in this country, and out of 400, 244,000 of them almost 60%, they have a credit, pension credit. That's the product that bank issue to the pension people, retired people. That rate was 18% at the beginning of the year. Meanwhile, the market rate is 22, 24%. And now they have been decreasing that rate through 2-3 times. It was 18%, then 15%, now promising 12%. So the question is where the rest of the money comes. As you said, they have a fund. Their fund is allocated to to commercial banks. And those commercial banks will give a loan to retired people at the level of 12%. And some loans are forgiven because this part, the decrease of the interest rates. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean? On one hand, it looks like the people are receiving less interest rate loan. And plus, by the way, they are decreasing the term up to 1 year. And then before the person who is receiving pension, all money went for loan. Now, loan payment. Now, the limit, 70% and 30% I should stay with me because they're covering minimum. The pension is not big anyway, but 30% is the bank should give a loan in such a way that 30% he remains with the person. Mm-hmm. But where the money is coming from, why this pension fund is given to commercial banks, which is supporting in general the monetary system in the society, but it keeps increasing in general. It does not help the interest rate go down. On the other hand, you see the market rate is 20%, now 12%. That 10% slowly is paid from the budget, the deficit. And what does it mean? It increased budget expenses, and when it increases expenses, then without any increase of the income, then it creates more deficit. With more budget deficit, what the government do? They are just increasing our taxes somehow. They find a way to tax. So at the end, it's at the cost of some people, at the cost of everybody, they give a loan, discounted loan to certain people who are retired. But this is not the best way of running pension fund in any country.
The social insurance fund money is not the state money. It's a taxpayers' money that the people would expect to get it back as a pension after 30 or 40 years. Yet the government is letting our money to be borrowed to the commercial banks. Why do people pay social insurance taxes?
This insurance, they call it fee, taxes, but this money is supposed to come back to that person without any discount, without any deductions when that person getting old, which is not the case in Mongolia, because our structure, the pension structure is that the current income of those who is working now are paid for the pension of the people who are retired also now. Mm-hmm. So this is the conceptual mistake here, because kind of people now working are paying pensions of the people who were working before. So who will pay for these people who is paying today? Who knows that time who is working? But they're working system, structure, salary, inflation, all changing. So the best thing is to have a separate fund, like many other countries do. Mm-hmm. Pension fund. By the way, pension fund is for long-term investment, which is useful for capital market, and they can invest it because the money is for 40 years, 35 years. They can invest money to the businesses which higher return maybe to buy bonds from other foreign countries, etc. So instead of that, they are just misusing like this. So it is not very long-term solutions.
In your opinion, what kind of social insurance system is suitable for Mongolia? How do you see the private social insurance?
It should be both. Mm-hmm. Now, current system doesn't work, it's clear. The Mongolian government has a lot debt to pension fund of Mongolians. And they have agreed at certain point before when one trade union had a very active president, Mr. Gambatar. That time they agreed even the sum, how much they will pay back. But unfortunately, we don't know now exactly how much they have paid back. But we know that this is now in the budget, the balance. So it is to be a separate fund, but they cannot do it right now. But a certain percent every year should move to this separate fund. This is one way, so that we have independent pension fund, even state-owned.
Okay.
Second way is to support creation of private pension fund, where if the employee pays a certain amount, 1% of his salary, then the employer has a right to match that 1% to that private fund, but the remaining goes to the state fund as much as his by law. He pays to state fund, the government, the employer is matching. Now, if he pays here, then he's also matching there, but he can deduct from the money which goes to the state fund. Then what happens? Because then the private pension fund is usually always working better, performing better, because there is a management. There are no politicians. There are professional investment fund managers are managing their fund. What is good for a person who is working now? When he's retired, he's receiving money with the interest of inflation change, for example. Well, at least not fully, but not at least certain part. Not like now. They receive the same money as it was, inflation when it was a zero, or the rate of U.S. and Mongolian tourists was very low. So this is the way. Combined private and public pension funds are the future. And today we should watch very seriously. It should be public fund. Because it's public fund, the people should know how much money, where it goes, and who is controlling, how many interest rates they receive.
Okay. Moving on to the next topic. All Mongolians are intoxicated by the choking smoke. Last Friday, the government meeting dismissed the proposal submitted by the NGO, whether expecting mothers or younger aged children could spend 5 days at the resorts and the camps. At that meeting, some issues tackling air pollution and ban on alcohol consumption were discussed. We're in the state of dying of smog. However, the government is keen to seeking long-term solutions. What kind of solutions for short-term and long-term?
Well, everybody knows, or at least everybody feels, what the situation we have in terms of air, and we have not yet made any workable decisions on that. We talk about artificial, better coal or special stove, but nothing is working. I think the short-term fastest decisions is to make infrastructure that allows heating and cold water to every household who is in Gir, living in the streets. This is the cheapest way to solve the issues. In many other countries, possible countries, they bring liquefied gas, natural gas, and they supply with a big special volume vacuum. There is called sealers. Or I don't know exactly. With a special container, they bring it, and people feed the houses with the gas. But which is expensive, and which we don't have the infrastructure in bigger size for that. This is the short-term solutions. The long-term solutions is housing of Gir districts, which somehow started by the current ministry. They are, for example, they given this special the mortgage loans to particular projects which is made in Gir district, inside of the Gir district. But however, because this mortgage loan system is not workable much, I suggest they have Ulaanbaatar city has owned bonds. Ulaanbaatar bond with particular name, for example, Bayinghoshu or Yarmak, where the new house will be made. Should be houses that these people can buy, affordable housing. For that, for issuing Ulaanbaatar bond, the city must have a right to sustain, to remain the current taxes. Certain percent, even half of the tax should stay in the city coffin. Otherwise, you will not buy muni bond when that municipality cannot tax the people. So this is the easiest way, I think, or at least most efficient way to make a housing for Gir district.
Okay. The government had approved an updated procedure for mortgage loan. How is the new procedure related to the economy?
This new procedure is different than the previous because they will be mostly paying attention to the houses which will be rented. Also, as I said, to the apartments which will be made in Gir districts, etc. But however, this is not the principally new solutions because this discounted mortgage housing in Mongolia creating a very big adversity, which is, for example, we have 66,000 apartments. 66,000 apartments are staying without host, without anybody, ready to sell. But we have 200,000 people staying in Gir looking for apartments that they can afford buying. Our current system is not workable. Clear example, for example, because this mortgage loan initiated by the central bank, which was behaving like a budget behavior, like infrastructure budget of the country. So that's why this whole balance will be moved to the government balance. But however, the current Minister of Finance have delayed, postponed that. It was supposed to be this January 1st, but now they said the next January 1st. Basically, it is because if they will move to the government budget, it will increase the deficit they are hardly fighting with. So it will take a year. In 2021, we start to pay Chinggis bond. The government have a huge expenses, and the Minister of Finance probably will not want to have that balance with great deficit to the moved from the central bank to the government.
Okay. One last question. The people are expecting the mortgage loan at the 5%, because some politicians promised to do so. Is that possible at this time in this economy?
You know, for politicians who want to be re-elected, everything is possible, in particular when he's promising our money, not his money. And so that's why they are talking about all this fairy tale, promising everything in the world, in the sky too. But unfortunately, it is coming at the end from the people who is working in this country, not stealing. And it's coming from the salary that people earn, and they go as a tax. Any companies who hardly earn some money in this hard circumstances of the currency, of the devaluation of the Greeks, etc., still they are paying a lot of taxes. So this is not possible. And if they will do as they did before, we will have more state debt, government debt, which we all pay together, not the guy who is promising.
Okay, this concludes for this week, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for every viewers of our program. We have been trying on DeFacto Review to share with you independent views on the major issues of a week. We have been trying it for second year already, and thank you very much for watching us, supporting us. Of course, there are things to improve, and we will try our best next year. And we will miss next Sunday night our review because we don't want to bother you day before New Year with all our critical remarks, which at the end I think it's useful because only by this independent critical remarks, discussions, we will make our country better. Thank you very much. Have a good New Year. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you. Have a happy holiday.